Standing in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, where the horizon is a seamless blend of turquoise and deep indigo, you find a scattering of coral atolls that appear more like a mirage than a nation. These are the Marshall Islands, a land of 29 atolls and 5 solitary islands, where the total landmass barely exceeds 70 square miles, yet the history contained within these narrow strips of sand is as vast as the sea itself. To understand the Marshall Islands is to understand the soul of the Pacific, a story of master navigators and a resilient people who have survived the most powerful forces of the modern world. Our journey begins thousands of years ago. Long before the first European sails appeared on the horizon, the ancestors of the Marshallese were performing feats of navigation that would have baffled the greatest minds of the Western world. Arriving approximately 2,000 years ago from Southeast Asia and the Solomon Islands, these Austronesian voyagers didn't just stumble upon these low-lying atolls. They found them through a deep, spiritual, and scientific connection to the ocean. Imagine sailing a proa, a swift outrigger canoe carved from breadfruit wood and lashed with coconut fiber, across hundreds of miles of open water. There are no landmarks, no compasses, and the islands you seek rise only a few feet above the waves, invisible until you are nearly upon them. To navigate this void, the Marshallese developed the art of wave piloting. They didn't just look at the stars, they felt the ocean. They could read the delep, the backbone of the sea, identifying how swells reflected and refracted off distant landmasses. They codified this knowledge in stick charts, lattices made of coconut fronds and shells that mapped the complex patterns of the currents. These weren't taken on the voyage. They were used on land to memorize the sea's temperament. This was a culture born of the water, where survival depended on an intimate dialogue with the tides. The isolation of these islands was first punctuated by the arrival of the Spanish in the 16th century. In 1529, the navigator Álvaro Saavedra Cerón sighted the atolls, but finding no gold or great riches to exploit, the Spanish largely left the region alone for 2 centuries. It wasn't until 1788 that the islands received the name we know today, when British captains John Marshal and Thomas Gilbert explored the Ratak and Ralik, the sunrise and sunset chains. Yet, the mapping of the region was truly refined by Russian explorers like Otto von Kotzebue in the early 1800s, who was among the first to document the sophisticated social structures and peaceful nature of the Marshallese people. By the mid-19th century, the outside world could no longer ignore the Marshall Islands. Shortly after, the global demand for coconut oil brought the German Empire to these shores. In 1885, Germany established a protectorate, transforming the islands into a massive copra-producing machine. For the first time, the Marshallese were integrated into a global economy, with the atoll of Jalluit becoming a bustling colonial hub. However, the 20th century brought a darker tide. With the outbreak of World War I, Japan seized the German holdings in Micronesia. Under a League of Nations mandate, the Japanese began to develop the islands. Their intentions shifted from economic development to military fortification. The Marshall Islands became a critical frontline in Japan's inner defense ring. By the time World War II reached its peak, atolls like Kwajalein and Enoatak had been transformed into formidable fortresses. The transition of power was violent. In early 1944, the United States launched Operation Flintlock, a massive amphibious assault on Kwajalein Atoll. It was one of the most intense battles of the Pacific Theater, resulting in the near-total destruction of the Japanese garrisons. For the Marshallese, the war was a period of unimaginable hardship, caught between 2 warring superpowers on narrow strips of land where there was nowhere to hide. The end of the war did not bring peace, but rather a new kind of trauma. In 1947, the United Nations placed the Marshall Islands under the administration of the United States as part of the Trust Territory of the Pacific Islands. It was during this period that the Marshall Islands entered the most controversial and devastating chapter of their history. The United States conducted 67 nuclear tests on Bikini and Eniwetok atolls. This was the Pacific Proving Grounds. The inhabitants of Bikini were asked to leave their ancestral homes for the good of mankind, with the promise that they would be able to return once the experiments were over. They could not have known that their land would be subjected to explosions that made the Hiroshima bomb look like a firecracker. On the 1st of March 1954, the US detonated Castle Bravo at Bikini Atoll. It was the largest nuclear device ever exploded by the United States, 1,000 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Due to a miscalculation in wind patterns, radioactive fallout, ash-like particles that the children on nearby atolls thought was snow, blanketed the inhabited atolls of Rongelap and Utirik. The health consequences were catastrophic: radiation sickness, cancers, and birth defects that would plague the population for generations. The people of Bikini and Eniwetok became exiles in their own country, displaced from lands that were now too toxic to inhabit. To this day, the legacy of these tests remains a central pillar of Marshallese identity, a story of sacrifice and a continued struggle for nuclear justice. Despite this history of displacement and colonial control, the late 20th century saw a powerful movement towards self-determination. In 1979, the Marshall Islands adopted its own constitution, and in 1986, it entered into a compact of free association with the United States. This agreement recognized the Republic of the Marshall Islands as a sovereign nation, though it remains tied to the US for defense and economic subsidies. This unique relationship reflects the island's ongoing strategic importance and the debt owed for the testing era. Today, the Marshall Islands are a vibrant, independent nation, but they face a new existential threat: climate change. As sea levels rise, these low-lying atolls are on the front lines of a global crisis. The very existence of the nation is at stake, as the ocean that once provided the Marshallese with their livelihood now threatens to reclaim their land. But if history has shown us anything, it is the resilience of the Marshallese spirit. In recent years, there has been a profound cultural revival. The Wan Ailoin in Marshal, Canoes of the Marshall Islands program is teaching a new generation the ancient art of canoe building and wave piloting. The matrilineal society, where land and identity are passed down through the mother, remains a bedrock of their social structure, ensuring that even in the face of modern challenges, the connection to the ancestors remains unbroken. When you visit the Marshall Islands today, you don't just see the remnants of war or the scars of nuclear testing. You see a people who have mastered the art of survival on the world's most fragile frontier. You see the intricate weaving of killie handbags, the competitive spirit of the annual outrigger races, and the warmth of a community that understands that their greatest strength is their connection to one another and the sea. The Marshall Islands remind us that history is not just a collection of dates and battles. It is the story of how people adapt, how they remember, and how they navigate toward a future, even when the stars are obscured and the currents are changing. From the first stick charts to the modern halls of the United Nations, the voice of the Marshall Islands is one of endurance, a testament to the power of a culture that refused to be washed away by the tides of history. As we look across the lagoons of Majuro or the silent sunken fleet in Bikini's waters, we are reminded that these atolls are more than just dots on a map. They are a mirror of our modern world, our triumphs, our failures, and our enduring hope for a sustainable future. The history of the Marshall Islands is the history of us all, played out on the stage of the greatest ocean on Earth.